Okay, so I want to talk about what I went through postpartum. It's almost been a whole year, and I want to talk about how you helped me and the things that I grabbed really held tight to what you taught me in those months. So, to start off, I had a really hard pregnancy and I cried nearly every day. It was really rough. And I couldn't understand exactly why it was so rough. It was just so rough. And then I gave birth, and the hospital setting was obviously very traumatic. And I know you and I had talked about like what they do in the hospital is not normal to women. Um, and so I feel like it was all just a slope kind of leading to postpartum anxiety, OCD, things like that. Um, so my biggest question that I have not asked you yet is, okay, so I reached out to you 6 days postpartum. By day 6, like everything had gone black. I was in total darkness. My thoughts were spiraling out. And so I texted you and all I said was, "Hey, my mental health is not well. Can we meet?" And you said yes. So a week out from the 6th of September, and I wasn't able to attend. And yet you still gave me an alchemy. And the alchemy was so spot on to things that I couldn't even vocalize, things I felt my entire pregnancy that I couldn't put my finger on to say it. And so, my question to you is, how were you so able to do that without me not telling you any detail?
Was that the alchemy that I gave you when you were going to attend the advanced class and we all worked with you in the advanced class and then sent you that alchemy?
Yes, the one
That
where I
one?
wasn't present. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what we did was we tuned into your field and what that means for people that don't understand is it means that through through practice and I've been practicing this since I was 19 and I had a near death experience. Through practice, you can learn to merge with other people. And when you merge, you can feel their emotions, you can hear their thoughts, you can merge with their perspective and see what's going on with them. And there are other things that are even deeper than that, but for the sake of keeping it simple, we'll just put it there. And when you merge, you can listen. So through my training, I learned how to listen to my own emotions. I learned how to listen to my own thoughts that were interacting with those emotions. And I learned how to understand how that was affecting my perspective. And I learned how to listen to my body. My body speaks the same as the emotions and the mind. And and on top of learning to listen, I learned how to alchemize whatever was in a distorted state into a wholeness state. So from doing that with myself for decades and learning how to transform so much distortion within myself, so much pain within myself, I now can merge with others and do the same thing. And so my students also learn how to do this. And that class in particular, the advanced class, they've been studying with me and Geschichte for at least 5 years. And so they're very good at it too. And when you get multiple people together who have that skill set, it's incredible what can occur. So we all tuned into you and listened to your emotions. We listened to your thoughts. We listened to your physical body and we saw through the eyes of your perspective so that we could fully comprehend the distortion and the pain that you were experiencing. And then what me and Gashish to do is sit in that and allow it to speak through us into its path to a wholeness state. So that's what a structured alchemy is, and that's what we gave you was a structured alchemy specifically for transforming your pain into its wholeness state. So into what it really is, because all pain is just a distortion from a wholeness state. And I often speak of that as field one coherence, and people don't really know what that means. But when I had my near death experience at 19, it was field one, which is a part of every single human, it's a part of everything that exists. All of existence actually lives in this unified field. And but we don't have clear tuning to it as humans, and we're not taught to listen to it. So through my near death experience, that door opened and I can't not listen to it. So I've had this training in field one coherence since I was 19. And in that field one coherence is all of the wholeness states. That's where everything that exists is in its pure state. And the further you get from that, the more distorted it becomes. And so what we did is we listened to the path for you in the pain that you were having into the wholeness state, spoke that entire path, ended in the wholeness state, not just as an idea or intellectualized, but as a true field, as a fully embodied emotional state, fully embodied thought state in relation to the emotional state, fully embodied new perspective. And so what happens is when you listen to that over and over and over again, you actually create new neural pathways that give you the experience that is the wholeness state eventually if you do it long enough.
Yeah, and I've actually experienced it. So I was really impressed with the alchemy when I received it because there was a key factor in there that I hadn't allowed myself to feel, and that was regret. Regret for making a decision when I wasn't ready for this, a child. I wasn't ready for that. So that regret was so heavy in there, and I could not say that. So when you said it, I remember listening to it for the first time, and it hit me right in the heart. And so this was September of last year, and I've played it almost every night, especially for the first few months. And then, I'll play it here and there whenever I start to feel that kind of regret coming up, or I use different alchemies too every night. But this specific one, I'll use it whenever I feel those things kind of wanting to nudge their way back into me. And so after an entire year of listening to this consistently, I am feeling myself truly step into what the path of coherence was. And that was thankfulness for my life and for the children that I've birthed and the family that I've formed for myself. So it took me a while to get there. And without having that pathway to admit that I messed up, I'm mad at myself, I regret this, I wouldn't have been able to get to this. It would have just sat there and sat and sat. So, pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's a common thing. That's why one of the reasons why it's so difficult to heal things within ourselves is because so much of the time it's difficult for us to admit how we actually feel about something because we've got some type of belief structure set up about how that's inappropriate to feel that way. It's inappropriate to think that way. If you actually do feel or think that way, then you think yourself a bad person. And so it closes a door on honesty. And that's the biggest obstacle to healing is the ability to be honest with oneself about where oneself is. Because if there isn't honesty in that beginning space, there's no way to transform that energy. And so what you're talking about, that ability to admit regret was difficult because it's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I don't want my own child? Does that mean that I don't love who I'm with? Does that mean that I'm a bad person? And what does it mean about how I treat myself? Does that mean that I'm abusive to myself? So it creates all of this other dialogue on top when one is honest with themselves that they might not feel like they're equipped to handle. And the beauty of these structured alchemies that we make is that they speak it on your behalf so that and before you know it, it's already going through its own alchemy. It's already going through its own healing process so that you don't have to sit there and go through all of those emotions and thoughts alone, but instead you're listening to them going, oh, okay. Oh, whoa, that was in me. Ugh. Oh, but that's the perspective of that. And so it does it for you in a safe way.
Yeah. And what I find, what I found very interesting was when we met up again. So you gave me this alchemy. I was playing it not consistent enough. And I was not eating, I was not sleeping, I was having night terrors every single night. I couldn't hold my baby. I didn't feel like a safe person to be able to hold her. And so, what I feel like that regret inside of me did was just like you just said, it made me not trust myself. Like, am I capable to do this? And I truly didn't feel equipped for the job. I felt scared of the job. And what that did, it created a lot of intrusive thoughts. And this is leading me to my next question to you because we did meet a few months later, or maybe it was a month and a half. We met Halloween Day. Um, and I was near checking myself in somewhere because I couldn't handle the thoughts. I couldn't handle not eating, not sleeping. And so we met again. And I never actually said this to you, but that first night that I texted you, I had the thought that I couldn't trust myself. And then I had the thought of, oh, what if I'm cutting something and I accidentally stab my baby? And then it was like, well, what if I stab myself? Or what if I stab you? And then my mind started to get really, really tricky with me and start to do things like that more often. And so I was really struggling with that, but I hadn't actually said anything to you. And you said, okay, the way that I want you to explain it, but the way that the fields are playing off of each other, you're having an emotion, you're having a thought, and you're in survival mode, and that survival mode says, kill the baby. Those were your exact words. But I want you to explain how the fields play on each other to create those intrusive thoughts because that piece of information helped me so much because I could understand that I'm having a lot of emotion right now. This thought is not true. This thought is not real. Bring it back down because the thoughts were scaring me even more.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't understand that everything in existence is about resonance, right? And so when your emotional field, I teach something called the eight field structure for human beings. All humans live within this eight field structure, and emotions are one of those fields. Thoughts is another one of those fields. Perception is another one of the fields. Then the physical existence is another one of the fields. Okay. The emotions, the thoughts, and the perception are in the tightest loop in this physical experience. So when you're in a distorted emotional space, which what that means is you're experiencing a lot of negative emotion, then the thoughts are finding resonance with that emotional energy and it becomes a feedback loop where the emotion that you're having resonates with a specific type of thought, which will then validate the emotion and it'll just sit there reverberating back and forth and back and forth. And then what that does is creates the way that you see the world. the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the people around you, the way that you see your future, all of that. And so, what I was saying to you was, you're in a very distressed emotional state, and your thoughts are responding to the distressed emotional state. So you don't want to think that just because your thoughts are responding to your emotional state doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're going to do anything that they tell you. You can look at your thoughts as an observer, like, wow, my emotions and my thoughts are having a very difficult time. And this is the dialogue that's happening from the distress that I'm in. And that is seeding the way I'm seeing everything. And to just try to help you come into a more observant space, because when we go into the observant space, then we don't entangle our own identity with whatever our thoughts are doing, whatever our emotions are doing, whatever our perspective is. It's like, okay, if I'm the one observing this chaos happening, then that means I'm not the chaos itself. The chaos is an aspect of me, but it's not the whole picture. And if I'm able to be the observer of the whole thing, then that means that it's possible for this chaos to organize itself and for me to feel better, to feel okay. So that's what I meant by that. And I was trying to help you not think of yourself in such a horrible light, because then when you include the identity into that whole loop, now it's like, what am I? I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible mother. There's something wrong with me. I shouldn't even have this baby. I'm not to be trusted. And then that reinforces that feedback loop even more. Now your identity is tied up into it too. And this happens to all of us all the time on different levels. But I knew if I could help you see what was happening in your body and your mind and your emotions as an observer, then you as the observer could start to offer compassion to yourself instead of judgment. And compassion, true compassion, when you can really look at self and go, wow, I'm really struggling, and offer that energy to it, it actually serves as a catalyst to start changing that feedback loop.
Interesting. And another thing, the way that you helped me in this same exact session that we had was you said to open up the table for the emotions to speak. And when I tell you that stuck with me to this day, like, okay, there's anger, there's sadness. All right, what do you want to say? Like, tell me what you need to say. And then you provide that comfort back to that emotion. Like, I totally get why you feel that way. Like, this does really suck. Or that would make, I feel sad too. Like, I feel sad, you know? And so, opening up a table for your emotions to each speak so that way it's not all like this at once, because that's what it was for me. It was so tangled up and messy that I was scared, I was angry, couldn't trust myself. And so once I started letting each one talk, all right, okay, I get it. And once they were validated, it really changed something for me. And I still do that to this day. I don't let them go unchecked. I kind of just place it to the side for a second. We'll get back to that later and I'll have a talk with you, regarding my emotions. Um, let's see. Um, I also want to talk about the normalcy of this because, like you said, like people don't talk about this because it's wrong to feel that way. You're a bad person if you feel that way. Um, and so I want to talk about the normalcy of this. And I want to share a little story. Um, there was an 80-year-old lady that I spoke with, and she told me something that happened in her life, something bad. And she said, I couldn't hold my kids. I couldn't hold my kids. I couldn't feed my kids because I was scared if I would have touched one of them, I was gonna kill him. Something bad was going to happen. And when she told me that, I feel you. So I want people to know, like, she might have not ever told anyone that in her life. Um, I want people to know that it is okay and there is a path out of it. And it's, I wouldn't say it's so normal, but it is normal and it happens. So I just want people to know that it does happen and it's okay to get the help that you need and to talk about it and not be afraid of judgment. I mean, the ways that you helped me alone, like, but if I would have never spoke about it, if I would have never told you what was going on, if I never reached for your hand, I'd still be sitting with that same regret. I'd still be sitting in it. And another thing, I had learned Pangu Shingon years ago, but I wasn't doing it the way that I was supposed to. I wasn't cultivating my own life force energy. Instead, it was just being drained by this constant turmoil, like emotional turmoil on a hamster wheel. Um, so once I started doing that every day, okay, like little by little by little, I never thought that I would get better. I never thought that I would feel okay. But little by little, through the alchemies, Qigong, eating right, that's another important thing that we spoke about. Eating right. I mean, that changed me a lot because I wouldn't even eat breakfast. Most of the time I wouldn't eat breakfast. Now it's like I'm eating like 3 eggs. Sometimes I'll even eat like 5 eggs in the morning for breakfast. Like I am loading up. So the important thing is to eat properly. I mean, as a human, but also during your pregnancy and after you've had a baby, your body needs those things because your hormones go crazy. And that was important too that you told me, because I was feeling so crazy. And you said you're not crazy. Your hormones, like you just had a baby. So understanding that as well, I think is important for women to truly understand what's happening within their own bodies and to be able to support it the correct way.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, you just spent, 9 to 10 months pregnant. Your body is creating another human being. So your energy is poured into that. Every bit of the nutrients that you're eating is poured into that. It's affecting your mind, it's affecting your emotions, of course, your hormones. Everything's affected for almost a year. Then you go through the birth process, and everyone has different levels of how traumatic that is. And then, and in this culture, usually you're put on a bunch of drugs while you're going through the birth process. Then after that, you have this brand new little baby who's completely dependent on you and who's still drawing from your body, even though now you're definitely in a deficient mode because you've just spent almost a year pregnant, you've just given birth. And so your hormones are all over the place. You're nutrient deficient. You're not sleeping because babies have to wake up like every 3 hours and eat. So you can't even take care of yourself to the way that you need to be able to. And then in this culture, it's women are really alone during that period of time. It would make more sense for communities to exist in this environment to help to a large extent so that they can support the mother who can then support the baby. And at this point, you're kind of lucky if you have just a man, the father, to help you, but having an entire community is extremely rare. So then that puts even more pressure and more stress on the mother. And it's no wonder that mothers crack under all of that. And then you already had two other little kids too, so you have that on top of it. And in addition to that, you have two children that are they're they're not fully related to one another. So you've got a mixed family, which has its own stressors as well. So you just had like every possible facet of stress that you could have, and then expect yourself to feel normal. It's like you're not going to feel normal. That's a lot to
Yeah.
juggle.
Yeah, and I really did expect to just be fine and dandy. And I think the main reason is because my birth for Cleo really set the stage. It was like I was so fine after that. But hello, I was also younger. I didn't have to stress about bills, this, that, the other, you know? It was a whole different time for me. So I set myself up to have this expectation of the same not imagine magical birth, the same feelings that I experienced for the other. And when none of that happened, I was like, whoa, I'm doomed. I'm doomed. And it started a whole trickle, honestly. But I'm most thankful that you were there to help me to untangle it because like you said, that community, I don't have that and I don't know many other new mothers who have much of that. Um, so I just hope that this, at least this, can bring some awareness to that and hopefully that community can start coming around for mothers again. Because I know it wasn't always like this. I just, I feel that in my bones that it wasn't always like this for moms. That village was once a village, and now it's not. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that makes being a mother now so difficult.
yeah. And the judgment that comes with it when you do say, hey, I'm having thoughts about this. You need to be locked up. That's the response that you get from society instead of a warm hug and some soup.
Right.
It's
Right.
just, yeah,
And that's the nature of reality right now. Everyone's so overwhelmed that so many just don't feel like they have it within themselves to give.
I think so too. I think that everyone is dealing with some sort of stress. It's a rat race, honestly, and it's so quick and nonstop. And it's really like I don't think anybody else really has that capability to step in for the mother. Everyone's working, this, that, and the other. It's our world.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. How do we change that?
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
But uh, in my opinion, one of the ways that we start to change that is simply by the awareness of what's really occurring in our society and making an effort to be supportive in whatever way we possibly can. That's what I did with you. I wasn't like, no, I don't have time to help you. It's like, you need help, and I'm going to figure out how to carve out time to help you so that you feel supported. And so much of the time, I think that people they haven't attuned themselves to their own giving nature. Instead, they're shrinking from it because it just feels like more responsibility. But the more that we attune to our own giving nature, the more we contribute to the field of community, even if we're not next to each other personally, because you and I have never met in person.
I know.
Yet we've developed a very strong relationship. So community can exist, support can exist even if you can't show up in person. You can figure out ways that you can genuinely offer it. And the it's a heart offering too. It's not so much contribution now is empty. It's like, oh, here's some money, which is great, but it's not it's not full of heart. And when someone's in a situation like you were in, that's what you needed. You needed heart. You needed you needed to know that people cared about you and that you
Yeah,
weren't alone.
yeah. Because even though I had a supportive partner, I still felt completely alone in that. It was like I needed women. I needed other mothers to just sit with me. Not even we didn't even have to say anything. What I really wished for in those moments was just to have some women at my house, maybe watching a movie, maybe baking, maybe, braiding each other's hair, anything like that. I just needed to feel like I was not alone in that because I was so scared of that. And I just, I hope that I can be that for someone else one day.
You
Just
will.
that. I,
You will.
I've had so many creative ideas come out of this because of what I did not receive. So, I mean, life has its ways of working its magic, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. But I've had so many ideas of starting like a postpartum care facility, like not a facility, but like you need me, I'm coming. I don't care if I don't know you, like I'm coming over with this.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Even a facility would be cool where mothers get to go to be with each other,
Yeah.
just in support. And you just mentioned another important part. Do you remember when you were thinking about checking yourself into that place? And then I said, well, you need to check and make sure you're not going to give up any rights if you do that. And what did you find?
That I was going to be medicated, whether I wanted to or not. That if they found need for me to stay, that I would not be able to leave. That I'd be placed on a hold. So I think it was a 36 or 72-hour hold to where I absolutely could not leave in those hours. So you take a mother who's already not feeling safe, already feeling scared. This mother is going to go and get some help. And she gets there maybe the first day and decides she doesn't like it and she wants to leave. And you tell that mother she cannot leave.
Yeah, you're going to make it worse.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad I didn't go because that would have really sent me into a spiral.
And what was my advice to you instead?
Your advice to me was to get away for the weekend and paint because you knew that I was an artist and you knew that that was my creative endeavor. So that was the best piece of advice I could have gotten because instead of going somewhere unfamiliar, I went somewhere else. I was alone the entire weekend and I was so scared. I was so scared all by myself. But I meditated, I painted, and I felt the slightest bit back in touch with who I was. Just a little bit. I could taste it barely. And now it's like I reflect on that a lot. I reflect on that weekend a lot because it kind of catapulted me into where I am now, I feel.
Yeah, because it's important to allow those emotions to express, right? So it's not just about giving you a structured alchemy, it's about getting in touch with your own emotions and letting them express. And creativity is how we do that. So, as a new mother, all of that creative energy is being poured into the baby the whole time we're pregnant, and then we're expected to pour all of that energy into the baby after we give birth. And I knew if you went and painted, number one, you would release a lot of the emotional energy that needed to come out. And you wouldn't have to do it by defining it. You'd be able to do it just through the creative process. And number two, it's reclaiming your creative energy for yourself again, which is really important.
Yeah, because I needed to know that I was not just someone's mother, that
Right.
I was my own human as well. And all of the things that I loved to do before somehow got lost. They
Yep.
were lost and gone. And so the more I create, the more that I do the things I love, the better that I feel. And that has been me. That is who I am, and I think that's who a lot of us are, but not many really tap into it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that was it. I think that was all that I had written
Awesome.
down. Those were the big
Awesome.
chunks. Yeah.
Well, hopefully this conversation can help someone else struggling.
Me too. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Thanks, Lex.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.